Well, hi friends, I'm Brian Cosby. This is Provide and Protect, and today we're talking about the top 50 things that every homesteader needs, part 2. So in part 1, I shared the first 10 of these 50, and today we're looking at numbers 11 through 20. In my list. But before we get into today's list, if you've not already done so, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate you and your support. With that, let's jump right in. So the first on the list today are these T-posts. And having T-posts like this are just so handy and valuable to have on any homestead, because you can, with these, you can construct temporary fencing or permanent fencing, and they come in all kinds of sizes and lengths. And we just have a collection of these over the years that we've kind of stored up and collected. And we've been able to build various paddocks, like for this with the goats here. And actually this whole paddock got T-posts running all the way up to the back of the barn up there. So hey there, come to check out what's going on in the video. But having these for the chickens, for dogs, for other animals have just been invaluable. So if you have any kinds of animals, any kind of animals on your property, having T-posts is certainly one of those things I would add to the list. So I think a second thing that every homesteader needs are cinder blocks. Now we use these for all kinds of purposes around our homestead, and we just have a big pile of them, whether it is preventing dogs from digging out something like this run, or we have built a rocket stove with cinder blocks. We've used them for leveling up an equipment shed, for a pad on our pasture. Just a wide variety of uses for cinder blocks. So we actually used these when we had a lot of rabbits. We did meat rabbits for a long time, and we used cinder blocks, all kinds of them, like these filled in ones here. They're very heavy, or the normal kind. I think we got some of the normal kind down here like that. But we use them for the meat rabbits to build up their areas where they were housed and their runs. So just all kinds of reasons. In addition to the T-posts, having cinder blocks I think is just super, super helpful. So I think a third item that every homesteader needs to have on hand is fuel. Whether it is something like some gas cans, and this is about a third of my gas cans, and mainly I've got most of them over on our pasture with my other equipment right now. So having a number of gas cans, diesel, all that is very helpful to have as a homesteader. I've got this little, I don't know what kind of shed this is I got. It's not a great little shed, but it keeps water out. So not only gas and diesel, but also propane. So if you have propane at your house or natural gas or something, to make sure that everything is good to go, this is a 500-gallon tank right here. We don't use a lot of it, but we do use it for stove and for our home generator right here. So we got propane going directly into this. But fuel is certainly something that every homesteader needs. So I think a fourth item that every homesteader needs is just a miscellaneous supply of lumber, boards. Got some over here. Now, I did just install a sawmill, so this is going to be a whole new thing for me, and having the ability to take trees and turn them into lumber. But I've found that always having a supply of dimensional lumber, like 2x4s, 2x6s, stuff like that, is just so handy, because you're always building, constructing things, and and I've got these the shelving system here, and I've got actually a video on that I'll link below. But like having this up off the floor and the ability to go and grab some boards. Every time you have extra scraps that you have left over from a project, don't throw them away, use them. And certainly that's something that's been one of the most beneficial things to have around a homestead, just a good supply of lumber. So I think a fifth item that every homesteader needs to have on hand is a collection of axes and hatchets. And here's a few of them here, and I use them for various purposes. And obviously you got a small like kindling hatchet here, some bigger ones for felling trees. I haven't really used this one much because I mainly just use a chainsaw, but there are times when I need to pound a wedge in on if I'm felling a tree. There's a splitting axe, Husqvarna splitting axe. And I carry a couple of them with me when I have the Pioneer out, and I carry those just to do a variety of projects around the property. So I think that having a variety of axes or hatchets is something every homesteader needs to consider having. And if any of you know me, this is not going to be a surprise at all, but knives. Certainly something I think every homesteader needs to have. Collection of knives. Now I love knives. I've got lots of videos on knives and reviews and sharpening and all of that. Here's a few of them in this kind of knife bag here for various purposes, from fillet to bushcrafting, survival, whatever, in here. And I've got them kind of tucked away around the property, but always needing a knife for various purposes, cutting paracord or cutting something on a tree, or just a wide variety of things I need around the property, the homestead. And having these available, I've got them tucked away in the Pioneer, in my truck, just on me. I'm always carrying an EDC knife, of course. But having knives, certainly something that I would encourage every homesteader to have. So I think a seventh thing that every homesteader needs to have is extra fencing. We have tons of fencing, whether it's these kind of hog or cow panels here, or runs like this, or electric netting like this for the chickens, or our perimeter fencing, which you can kind of see right here, which goes around our entire property. So there's such a wide variety of uses for fencing, and we've got some here for our garden as well. But having a good supply of fencing for animals, for a garden, for blocking things in, or keeping deer out or other animals out, it's just one of those necessary things that we have found super handy and helpful to have around the homestead. So I think an eighth thing that every homesteader needs to have is a good supply of paracord. Now, I've got some here in this little bin. We keep paracord in our side-by-side, in our home, on our equipment shed. We just keep paracord everywhere because it's so handy in hanging chicken feeders and roping things off and using it for all kinds of purposes, even for fun purposes, hanging hammocks, that kind of thing. But having a good variety. I've got a whole video on the uses of paracord, which I'll link below. But this 550 paracord is what you want to get. This is the type 3. See that? Type 3. It's kind of the mil spec. And the reason for that is you got all of these strands within this outer casing, and it's just incredibly strong and it's just super handy. So having paracord around is just one of those necessary things I think every homesteader needs to have. So I think a ninth thing that every homesteader needs to have is a good assortment supply of man's best friend, other than a dog, zip ties. And we have a supply of these not only here, but we've got them in our vehicles. We have zip ties in go bags, in our side-by-side. We just have them stuffed, kind of like paracord. We've got them just stuffed everywhere because they're so handy. And when you realize how useful they are, you start using them very often. Now, over time, a couple years, few years, they'll eventually go bad if they're outside in the elements, the weather. So getting a good supply of different lengths, some small ones, some longer ones. You can tell we used to go through these all the time. I need to get some more, probably. But having a good supply of these is certainly something to add to the list for every homesteader. Surrounding out number 10 on my list today, in this part 2, is this little contraption right here. And this is my snake catcher. So we get a lot of snakes here in Tennessee, and they're always in the chicken coop up there, especially rat snakes and king snakes. But we also have, and we found, copperheads and timber rattlers around here as well. And I don't always want to reach down and grab one of those. So this is what I made. And it's this little 2x2, and you can make this really easily, but it's a 2x2 piece of lumber here. And at the end I put an eye bolt, and all you got to do is put just one-handed here. You put you put this around, you make this bigger, put this around the head of the snake. You kind of reach this in slowly wherever the snake is. Put this around the head of the snake. Be careful with this. You don't want to do this with a venomous snake, so you need to know your snakes. But put this around the head of a snake, and then this is a longer piece. Here's another use of paracord, by the way. But longer piece of paracord, and then I just tighten this, and it tightens around the neck of the snake, and then I can grab the other part of the snake with my hand. And we've found all kinds of snakes around our property, and to have something like this, I think every homesteader needs to have something like this to control those serpents that are hanging around your property. Well, that's going to do it for today. I hope it's been helpful for you. If you have ideas that you would like featured in future videos in this series, please drop those down below. I'd love to incorporate those. And if you've not already done so, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you and your support for us and for this channel, and we'll see you in the next video.